Gaps in employment. In this video, we're going to cover everything that has to do with a gap in employment, starting from your resume and cover letter to how to talk about it in an interview if you're asked about it. So make sure you watch this video till the end so you know exactly what you need to do when it comes to best practices to make sure that you get that job regardless of whether you're not employed currently or not. All right, just before we begin, remember to smash the like button below so that this video can be sent to other people just like you because it helps with the algorithm. All right, so let's say that you have an employment gap. There are multiple scenarios, but let's suppose that you are currently out of a job and you have been out of a job for more than 3 months. Now, if it's a long-term thing like 4, 5, 6 months, even a year, then that's going to be very big. If it's more than 3 months, that can also potentially be an issue, since 3 months tends to be the time in which they wonder whether or not you were doing something to begin with. I know this may sound like too little time if you're laid off, expected to get a job within 3 months, but that's usually kind of like the shortest period in which you can still be safe in less than 3 months if you weren't quote unquote doing anything, so to speak. So basically, if you have been out of a job for more than 3 months, then you can consider yourself like you have a gap in your resume, and that may actually hurt your chances of getting that job. So if that is your case currently, then that's an issue. But if you are currently employed and you had gaps before that, that doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter that much. If you're currently employed, you have proven yourself that you're currently employed, and that's what matters to them. This is something important, and that's why they say don't leave your job until you have another one or something else to do, because if you don't have a job, it's going to be harder to get a job than if you are currently employed. And this is one of those reasons, the whole thing that has to do with the gap. Now, you may have a gap for multiple reasons. Maybe you went out to study. That's not necessarily a gap at all. Maybe you stayed home in order to take care of your children or dependent relatives. Maybe you were laid off and it's really taking you forever to get another job and you just have not been able to get another one. If that's your case, don't worry, we're going to explain exactly what you can do in order to improve your chances going forward. So stay tuned. All right, so regardless of the reason, what you want to do are two things, and I'm going to explain it like really quickly, and then we're going to go and elaborate a little bit more on them. Basically, whatever it was that you were doing in that time, I don't care if you were trying to get a job and you couldn't get one in like 2, 3, 10 years. I don't care if you were really doing nothing at all. What you have to do is you have to show that you were actually being a productive member of society regardless. So you do this in multiple ways. Let's say maybe you started a small business. Even if you didn't actually make money with that, that's still really good experience that you can parlay or spin off in a way that makes you look good. Maybe you were doing volunteering work, and that's good. Maybe you were following a passion. I don't know, maybe you like video games and you started playing, and maybe you went to a local tournament and you did relatively well in it. That's something that you can show as a passion, as your ability to be diligent, as your ability to actually get good and get a job done, right? Now, obviously, not all things are equal. If you are going for a specific type of role, let's say something in coding or something more in the science base, then maybe if you did a hobby or you passed your free time or you had volunteering experience or started a business or freelancing or consulting in something at least tangentially close to that coding or that science-based job that you want, that's going to help you more. But even if that's not the case, if you still did something completely unrelated but you managed to excel at it, or you managed to get a lot of it in terms of enthusiasm that can show when you're talking with the interviewers, then that's still going to come off positively. That's still going to come off as a way of like, okay, that's great. Now let's move on into more important aspects of how you fit this role particularly. All right. So having said that, again, all you have to do is take what you did and spin it off. If you were studying, that's no gap whatsoever. Like if you were a full-time student, even if you were a part-time student, it doesn't matter. Maybe you were a part-time student, maybe you had a part-time job. Again, you just have to craft it and spin it in a way that makes you look like a productive member, like someone that has kept busy regardless of the situations or the circumstances that life has brought upon you. Again, always try to spin things off in a positive light. always word them positively. So for example, instead of saying because some people actually write this stuff on the resume, don't do that. Like, oh, I was laid off 2 years ago, I have not been able to get a job ever since. That's kind of like, that doesn't make you look good at all, and it's not helpful, okay? So what you want to do is you want to avoid negatives, and you want to spin it off positively. You want to go somewhere along the lines of, let's suppose that, yeah, you were laid off 2 years ago, you have been applying, but you have not gotten a job. However, you have been doing some volunteering work, or you have been following a passion project of sorts. Then maybe, I don't know, maybe you were trying to build a makeup business, or maybe you were messing with social media, seeing if you could build an audience based on makeup. I'm just making stuff off the cuff here. Basically, what you could do is, if you're going, I don't know, a marketing role, or regardless, you could go in and say nothing about the layoff. You could just say something along the lines of, for the past 2 years, I've pursued my passion of building a cosmetics brand and a business. I've learned a lot by talking to suppliers, building a client list, doing XYZ. And you can talk about achievements in terms of, maybe I got 100 people to follow me. Maybe I got 1,000, I don't know. Maybe I got an audience of 1,000 people who regularly check back on us. Maybe you didn't make money, but you can talk about something that you did get from that, right? You can even talk about the experience of some of the achievements, and also what you learned from them, right? So ideally, that's what you can use in order to spin that off. Now, even if that's not the case, even if it was something like you were taking care of your relatives, that's still something that you can just explain just like that. This happens to a lot more people than we realize sometimes. So you can just explain it. Now, where should you explain all of this? Now, the resume is not really the best place to. Like I mentioned, you just want to highlight stuff. Ideally, you want to put at the top the best stuff that you've had. Maybe your last employment, that's something that's very, how do we call it, germane, something that's very relevant to the new role that you're going to get into. And then in the cover letter, which is used a lot in the United States and some other developed countries, you can actually explain some of the extenuating circumstances, such as for the past 10 years I've taken care of my dependent relatives, but now because of XYZ, I am now more than able to come back into the workforce. And in order to prepare myself for that, I updated my knowledge with this certification for the past 2 months in advance, knowing that I will go back into the workforce. You see how much better that sounds? And you put that in the cover letter, all right? Now, let's say that maybe you don't use cover letter. Regardless, you go into the interview, you get an interview, and you get asked about the employment gap. Again, you should be honest and just explain it and move on. Be honest and always spin it positively, right? Well, I had the opportunity for the last 10 years to actually take care of my dependent parents, whom have had some health issues along the way, and this to me was a very strong priority at the time because they were XYZ. You could say now that they've passed away, or you could say now that their health has improved and they are no longer in danger. I feel more than completely, or now that I have a husband, or now that someone else is helping me take care of them. You see, like something changed, that you are no longer in that position, and therefore you're ready to take on the new responsibility. And something that I mentioned very briefly, yes, certifications, anything that you can do, even like at night or online, that actually builds you up, right? Like that's what you've been doing to kind of like go along and be more ready for that role, is going to be seen in very positive light. So, all right, let's say that you could explain in the cover letter, you could explain it in the interview, but only if they ask you. You should always be positive. You should always spin the productive things that you have been doing, regardless of whether it was for money or not. And what else can we do when it comes to the employment gap? Well, those are things that you can do to kind of like ameliorate or reduce the damage, or just spin it off in a way that comes off positively. But there are other things that you can do to enhance the chances of actually getting a job. I've mentioned this in other videos before, but something you can do is, depending on the reason why you were out of a job, let's say for example you were a stay-at-home parent, then it's very likely that you'll be able to find support groups or forums online where you have other people who were in your shoes. Maybe something along the lines of stay-at-home moms getting back into the workforce, something along those lines, right? This is important for you to network with people who have been in your shoes. Why? Because you will find groups that have been successful, groups of people just like you who have been successful in making that transition. If you talk to them, you'll not only be able to get some more tips that are very particular for your specific situation, which I cannot do here right now, and not only that, but if you network with them, you may find employers who were once in your shoes. For example, maybe the recruiter, the hiring manager at the firm that you want to work for was a stay-at-home mom who took an absence of about 10 years from her career, then got back, and now is in a position of hiring people back. Don't you think that you'll be considerably more open to consider your circumstances if you yourself are a stay-at-home mom just like her? The answer most likely is yes, because as you know, people like people who are like them. Same thing if you were a stay-at-home husband, or if you were at a gap for whatever other reason, being laid off, anything like that. You can be honest, again, spin it positively. They're going to be, if it's someone who has gone through what you went through, they're much more likely to be positive about that. Also, it doesn't necessarily have to be the specific hiring manager. It could also be a firm that has that as a policy. Some firms out there may have diversity quotas that they want to fill. They may have different values. Different industries may value different skill sets and different genders, different backgrounds differently. So make sure that you research all of that. You can do all that on Google or online just to get an idea, and that's gonna take you very far, right? Like if you are, for example, a person in the West Coast in the United States and you're interested in technology, and you know that generally it's for people who have an engineering background like you, maybe you're a male as well, which tends to be predominant in that industry, as you have a lot of things going for you. But maybe if, I don't know, maybe you were a stay-at-home mom and you're interested in technology, but you're also interested in another, let's say, more female-dominated industry. Let's say, I'm just pulling it off of the hat here, so don't get mad. I don't know, marketing or something along those lines. Marketing is, in my opinion, super important for every single business, maybe even more than the tech sometimes, depending on the business. So if you have a pick between industries or the kinds of roles that you're going for, then try to go for those that are going to be more open. And the companies specifically within those industries are going to be more open to hire people with your particular background, specifically with who have had those employment gaps, right? So target the companies that are more open to have you. Network with people who have been in your shoes and have successfully done that. You may have people in your current network, I don't know, maybe Facebook, maybe high school friends who have done that already, maybe people from your college or whatever else you've seen them. So go and talk to them and see what they can offer you. You'd be surprised. You might have some good tips that you could follow. And basically just explain it the way I mentioned earlier once you're in the interview, or if you get the chance to do a cover letter or an extenuating circumstances letter while applying for the position. So that's it for me now. Comment below if this makes sense or if you have any other question with regards to that. And if you haven't already, remember to smash that like button and subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell so you know whenever a new video comes out. Bye bye.